Welcome to the Ergo2go podcast, brought to you by the Back School and Ability on Demand. I'm your host, Matt Jeffs. We bring you interesting people from the world of ergonomics, on-site injury prevention, risk management, health, safety, well-being, and a whole lot more. Don't forget to subscribe below and click on the little bell in the upper right-hand corner to get the latest on the overlapping fields of ergonomics, health and safety, risk management, human resources, and healthcare, right here on the Ergo2go podcast. Today's guest is a nationally recognized expert in the fields of occupational health and safety and ergonomics. He's instructed well over 1,000 workshops and seminars on ergonomic awareness and musculoskeletal disorder prevention to a broad array of healthcare and industrial health and safety professionals. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the Ergo2go podcast for segment 3, the director of the Back School for over 25 years, Ron Porter. Ron, welcome back.
Thank you, Matt. It's great to be here today.
It's good to have you. It's been fun talking so far on our stream of consciousness journeys.
I've enjoyed it as always. I always enjoy interacting with you.
Well, likewise, my friend. You've spoken at a lot of places over the past decade at the American Society of Safety Engineers, and we talked about that in the last segment. But for over a decade, you've spoken at the American Association of Occupational Health Nurses, their annual conference. What are some common interests between, say, physical and occupational therapists and health nurses, healthcare practitioners, when it comes to injury and illness prevention in these broad areas? Where do we overlap? And can you share with us some experiences with health nurses, good, bad, or indifferent?
All of it very good. Actually, probably the reason we are talking here today is because of an occupational health nurse from a local industry contacted the Atlanta Back Clinic, and she said, "I'm really tired of sending you our employees for treatment. We think we run a safe plant. Would you come down here and tell us what we're doing wrong?" And so a group of the therapists from the clinic went down, looked at the workplace, and what we found there, was they were not doing anything wrong. It was just basically some of the ergonomics issues that we've already discussed. We implemented a program for them. In the 1980s, when we were first beginning this business, was often the individual in the workplace that was really fighting the fires. They were, most plans, even if they had a company doctor, he was or she was not there all the time. The nurse was the one that was really out there throwing the water on the fire.
Right.
Both
figuratively and literally, huh?
Unfortunately, that was true.
Yeah.
And so their nursing background is not the same as physical therapy background. Their skill sets are, our skill sets are similar but different. We all understand the human body, but our perspectives and focus are different. So I've worked a lot with occupational health nurses in bringing them up to speed, understanding some of the musculoskeletal disorders, the epidemic of carpal tunnel syndrome that we've seen the last couple of decades, and trying to understand a little bit more of not only what is causing it, but some of the things that can be done to either treat it or prevent it. So we worked with them to give them ideas of first aid treatment, medical management, things that they could do. And it allowed me the opportunity to speak at their conferences and to interact with them more. They're often the sort of the go-between from management to the employee related to work-related medical issues, or sometimes not just work-related. I think the nurse develops a relationship with the employee. Often the employee comes in dealing with other issues. As you and I know, a lot of the musculoskeletal disorders are not, they're certainly not solely related to work activities. They're related to using the body in every environment.
That's right.
So that's been very helpful to see what they were up against and to be able to work with them as a team in the workplace.
And sometimes those issues are downstream, the physical issues are downstream from social and even psychological ones as well. Again, as our new model evolves, we're kind of looking at the whole organism and not just an animated hunk of meat, so to speak.
Most definitely.
I wanted to ask you, because this is something we both face, towards the end of each year, usually in the third or fourth, late third or beginning of the fourth quarter, our phones start ringing off the hook because everybody is getting their experience modification rate for next year, and they realize then that their workers' comp premiums aren't going down. If anything, they're staying or going up. And we're always having to explain to our clients and potential clients that unfortunately in the environmental health and safety world, if it bleeds, it leads, to borrow from the vernacular of old network television. And so they're often finding themselves rushing. You mentioned fires earlier. That's what brought this thought process along. They may be quite literally putting out a fire. They might have a gas leak. They may have an amputation. They may have something big they address. And ergonomics is this death by 1,000 cuts type of thing, where it doesn't float to the top of attention until that experience modification rate quote comes in and they realize their comp costs aren't going down. You know, and I know the U.S. Department of Labor stats on this, that actually musculoskeletal, and when you mix with it the results of slips, trips, and falls, which we all in physical therapy deal with, we're kind of specialists in these areas. They don't go away because of that focus on those big it bleeds, it leads issues. I've just wanted to ask you, I listen to audiobooks. In this day and age, my ears have more free time than my eyes do in this digital age. And I've been listening to Tipping Point with Malcolm Gladwell, his book. And he talks about the success of the broken window theory and how going after the small stuff actually is what turns around things like crime rates in big cities like New York, how they started to clean up graffiti and go after the small things and actually change the culture. Do you think that broken window theory kind of applies to ergonomics when you hold it in contrast to this bleeds, it leads sort of thing we keep seeing year in and year out? Would you care to address that a little bit?
I'd be delighted to. I think, certainly ergonomics, as you pointed out there, a back injury or carpal tunnel syndrome is not an amputation. It's not a big showy, for lack of a better term, or a more traumatic injury, but it is sort of an insidious issue that occurs over a period of time. Most of us, as we discuss ergonomics, we talk to people about being able to pay more attention to their body.
Right.
Ergonomic injuries begin with fatigue, which is a result of a nutrient pathway disorder, not getting enough blood flow to recover from the stress that you exposed your body to. And ultimately, it gets to what we used to call the straw that broke the camel's back.
Right.
But the treatments for musculoskeletal disorders are not nearly as clear cut as they are for some of the other traumatic injuries. However, when we do implement solutions for musculoskeletal disorders, where, as you pointed out, we're addressing other things that may be producing work-related injuries, the slips, trips, and falls. One of the things that you and I both focus on when we're dealing with clients is the importance of physical fitness. And fitness includes balance, coordination, which are things that certainly decrease the risk of slips, trips, and falls, which produce another significant amount of the cost that you alluded to with workers' compensation. I would imagine if you group together both your slips, trips, and falls and all of your musculoskeletal disorders, you're going to exceed 50%
Yep.
of the total workers' comp claims. And so by dealing with one or the other of those, whether it's dealing with the ergonomic risk factors of the musculoskeletal disorders or dealing with the fitness of the worker for performing the job, which is one of our focuses in ergonomics, you're going to see a win-win situation, and for the employee, and also for the employer.
Precisely. I'm so glad to hear you summarize that, because it is the sort of thing we face every year. We were both talking about that earlier a week or so ago, how all of a sudden the phone is ringing off the hook, and it always seems to be that way at the end of the year. And the only thing I can summarize is, guess what? They just got their quote for next year's workers' comp premiums, and they're going, my gosh, what's going on here?
Well,
it's complex.
It is, and you couple that with something that you and I discussed before we started this podcast, the aging workforce, which includes the two of us. You certainly have sort of the perfect storm.
That's
where
exactly right.
our bodies have an expiration date on them, and and our goal that has always been to try to increase the length of the individual we're working with, whether it's a patient in the clinic or an employee in the industry.
Right.
We want to increase we want to push that expiration date further out there. The older we get, the more important it seems to be. But that's something that you and I have noticed we definitely need to address with the younger worker today as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We, I'm afraid my milk is starting to turn. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
That's okay. You know that when the most frequently asked question you receive is, regarding something that involves retirement assisted living, the mail that I receive most of the time now is I assume groups, certain groups by age range.
Yeah.
And so frequently I receive things in the mail that frighten me because I understand what my age is, but
we don't want to be reminded.
No, and that's one of the reasons I've loved ergonomics is I applied in my own life.
Yeah.
My goal is and that's one of the things I've enjoyed about working with you and with the other instructors that work through the back school is that we're you and the people that work with us are also people oriented.
Yeah.
They didn't get into this they got into it because they wanted to help other people. And now they've learned that their skill sets have provided them with another avenue of doing that. You and I, as physical therapists, I know I began my career in a clinical environment, and I assume you probably did it as well. At least during school we did.
Oh, absolutely.
There was, so it's given us the opportunity to expand and grow, which to me is what life's all about, is expanding and growing. And that's been our focus at the back school, is helping the people that we work with expand and grow so that they can all be successful.
Couldn't summarize it better than that. Ron, if people want to learn more about the important work you're doing, what's the best way for them to find you?
Well, probably today with technology is through our website, which is www.thebackschool.net.
Thebackschool.net.
Mm-hmm.
No, definitely. Well, gosh, it's been a real pleasure. I'm glad we had this opportunity to do this. And I think there's more to discuss. So I hope in the future we might have you back on the Ergo2go podcast. Would you be willing?
I would love to come back. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today, Matt.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, Ron. And
you're a star. You really are.
Enough of that. Folks,
Okay.
you've been listening to and watching the Ergo2go podcast. I'm your host, Matt Jeffs. Regardless of what Ron Porter says, it's brought to you by the Back School and Ability on Demand. We bring interesting people from the world of ergonomics, like Ron, on-site injury prevention, health, safety, well-being, and a whole lot more. Again, don't forget to subscribe below and click on the little bell in the upper right-hand corner to get the latest info from the overlapping fields of ergonomics, health and safety, risk management, human resources, and healthcare, right here on the Ergo2go podcast. Until next time, let's be safe, let's be smart, and let's be helpful. Let's get to work. See you next time, everybody. Take good care. Bye-bye.